Story 1. My aunt accused me of having a crush on her, so I made her know how right she was. Hello. I, 24 female, have a completely chaotic dumpster fire for a family. If it isn't one thing, it's the next. And as such, I do not visit my family unless forced or on holidays because they're invited despite my suggestions. Here more recently, last summer I believe, my aunt got into a problem with me, the eldest of my siblings, and my eldest younger sister, 21, because my aunt felt it was her right to bully and abuse my youngest sister through her own children and their phones. Which, okay, that was a thing, but this post isn't entirely about that. I called Child Protective Services because of some allegations that came my way about the treatment of my aunt's children, and because of that she was trying to figure out who did it and was gossiping with my elder cousin, her adult stepdaughter, about who it could be and said, I'm quoting, "Well, it could have been OP, she does have a crush on me." When my cousin looked flabbergasted at such a ludicrous statement, my aunt's 9-year-old daughter popped up, "It's true, she really does." What the actual F? So not only is my aunt abusive and less than dirt in my opinion, she's also completely delusional and is so much so her children know of this particular belief. Now, when I heard this ridiculousness, I didn't know what to do with it. Really, like, what do you say and do about that? Blow up at her, call her an insufferable pig, dive deeper into when she started believing this, blasting her online, etc. And then malicious compliance came to mind, and the Grinch's grin smeared across my face. Starting from that day, I heard this rumor any and every time I saw her, I flirted hard. "Oh my god, auntie, aren't you the sexiest thing I've seen today?" Or, "My god, uncle, I wouldn't let that beaut through your fingers. If you ever want a massage, let me know. I would love to give one to the prettiest girl here. Gosh, there is just no way you're over 50, yo. Uncle, you're a very, very lucky man." As examples, I whistle as a greeting to her and I make sure to wink at her at least once per interaction. She doesn't know my cousin, her stepdaughter, told me about her accusation. She looks so uncomfortable every time I approach or even arrive at family gatherings, and I effing love it. Karma's a witch. Maybe don't bully and abuse kids and fill your own children with nonsense rumors like your niece, who you've known since she was 8 years old, wanting to doodle you. I'm never going to stop. I have a crush on my aunt, after all. Edit, something I didn't think I'd have to clear up is, I do not have a crush on my aunt. Sarcasm is a thing. Not to mention, some have said this just makes me look bad. To who exactly? The woman telling her children that her niece wants her? My family? The dumpster fire? Y'all ever heard of a rumor so ridiculous that you just go with it? If I raised a huge fuss about it, that would have made me look guilty with that logic. This way, I have the power, and maybe, just maybe, she'll think twice about ridiculous rumors. Yeah, I support this. I think it's funny as hell. And yeah, your family's a dumpster fire and you don't care about what they think, so yeah, I say just friggin' lean into it, go with it. Get more ridiculous with that stuff. Why not? Who cares? I mean, maybe at some point it will become clear to them that you're just putting this on because of what she said and she gets to feel like an idiot because of it. Or maybe they don't. And who cares? Because screw them. They're a dumpster fire, and you don't need that in your life. Story 2. My grandpa's entitled children hid his death and tried to keep my Nana from her own husband's funeral. This is a story that happened a very long time ago when I was around 19 years old, but I still haven't gotten over what a strange experience it was. My grandfather died when I was just a baby. When I was older, my Nana married a new man, a widower who all call Grandpa Walt. He was the only maternal grandpa I knew, so I considered him my family. I didn't know this during the decade I knew him, but his kids from his previous marriage did not feel the same about my Nana. They did not believe in remarriage and considered her the most evil person in history for tempting their father from his vows to their deceased mother. They refused to see him in the home that my Nana owned, so when he got older and had difficulty leaving the house on his own, they mostly just stopped seeing him for years. He had never mentioned his kids, so I knew nothing about them. Eventually, he started getting bad enough that prolonged hospital stays were getting more frequent, and he needed to be in and out of full-time care. Whenever he was in the hospital, she would visit him until he could return home. They had been snowbirds, spending winters in Florida and summers in Michigan, but because of his health, they'd not been able to go to their Florida home in many years. They decided that she would go down for a week or two to make sure the home was okay and start the process of selling it before its value dropped from lack of maintenance while he was safely in full-time care with staff they had known and trusted for years. Then they could use the money from the sale for his care. I went to visit him the day after he left to make sure he was doing okay. His son and daughter were there. It was the first time I'd ever seen them. I'd barely even been aware of their existence, but I figured out who they were from context. I said hello and tried to introduce myself. They pretended as though I was invisible and they hadn't heard anything, like a child would do during a game when they pretend a sibling is a ghost. I awkwardly sat in a chair. They proceeded to stand there for over an hour talking right in front of me to Grandpa Walt about how evil my Nana was, that she would abandon him in some dirty hospital that was actually quite nice, and run off spending all his money partying in Florida like a gold-digging hussy, and how they hoped he would remember that when it came to his will. It should be noted that my Nana, while by no means wealthy, had a lot more money than he did, and all of their property was hers from decades before she even met him. She was also an elderly woman with a hip replacement who used a walker, you know, the kind with yellow tennis balls on the legs, so she was in no condition to be partying in Miami or whatever they thought she was doing. He never once responded, he just stared straight ahead with glazed eyes. I wasn't sure if he even heard anything. He was not looking very well, but I knew he always had his ups and downs, so I didn't imagine anything was unusual. I was flabbergasted. Looking back, I wish I had spoken up. But I was a teenager in a hospital room full of sick and dying people, and I didn't know how to fight back without causing a huge scene. Eventually, I just took a brief pause in their rant to stand up and tell Grandpa Walt that I had to go, and that we all loved him, and his wife would be home soon after she took care of the house issues. The entitled son and daughter spoke to me for the first time, telling me I didn't need to come back because they would be there for him and I was not his family. I rushed to my parents' house and told them what had happened, and they filled me in on their issues. And it seemed like even if they seemed awful, I knew it wasn't my place to try and keep them from their father. So I stayed away and gave them time to catch up and hoped that when I wasn't there, they could actually catch up and figure out their relationship. A few days later, my Nana got a very strange call from the hospital. A nurse that she knew very well from Grandpa Walt's hospital called her and asked how she was. Nana said fine. The nurse then awkwardly asked, "Do you know?" My Nana asked, "Know what?" And the woman broke down. Grandpa Walt had been dead for 24 hours. His son and daughter had forbidden the hospital from contacting my Nana and said they would let everyone know about the funeral arrangements. I had no idea what weird loophole caused higher-ups at the hospital to follow along with this, but his nurse sensed something was up and took a risk of calling to make sure my Nana knew. She did not. None of us did. They were attempting to hide his death and hurriedly hold a funeral before any of us found out. The nurse let us know where and when the funeral was taking place. Nana called all of us on the way to the airport to let us know. We started the phone tree for our whole family, and soon after she was back, and we were all on our way to the funeral. The look of rage and disgust we got when we walked into my own grandpa's funeral, that my Nana got for walking into her own husband's funeral, was terrifying. They glared angrily, and you could see that they wanted to scream and throw us out, but decided not to cause a scene. Instead, his daughter walked up and grabbed a fruit basket off the table. She announced that she was putting it in her car, and if any of her guests wanted fruit, they could ask her, and she would go to the car to get it because she didn't want just anyone eating her fruit. The son and the daughter gave speeches about how their father was finally in heaven, back with his one true love, their mother, and finally free from those who tried to tear their love apart. The staff of the funeral home eventually clued into the weird dynamic and found a way to put my Nana's car in front of the procession where neither of Grandpa Walt's kids were looking, just to give her a brief moment of respect. She was peed, but there was nothing she could do. These people thought their own opinions of the definition of "till death do us part" entitled them to hide my Nana's husband's death from her, hold their own funeral, and surely they spent days pressuring their father to cut her out of their will. I wish I could have seen their faces when they found out that none of the property they were salivating over was owned by him. It was a terrible, painful day for her to have to fight her way into her own husband's funeral. I was very sad, but I couldn't help but laugh at the fruit basket thing. It just came out automatically. It was the saddest, most petty, most evilly pathetic power grab I have ever seen. If those were my children acting that way, they wouldn't be in my will at all. In fact, I would go so far as to almost be willing to go no contact with children. They're adult children. They can make decisions. And if they're not going to respect the decisions that the father's making, then I wouldn't want to talk to them. I'd be like, no, you're absolutely not a part of my life if you're going to be like this. How dare you disrespect this woman that I love, like, and these adults acting like the brattiest children. I'm sorry, they suck so much. I don't care what their beliefs are about till death do us part. Look, if you have your beliefs about that and you want to hold on to that and be like, I don't agree with this, you still respect the person if you care for them. You still let them have their way of living. You don't act like this. I'm sorry, if I was like the Nana of the other family, I would have, there seems like there could be a case for suing them for this. That is so unbelievably disgusting. What awful, awful people. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for telling my friend I can't be her bridesmaid when my grandmother is dying? I happily agreed to be a bridesmaid for a good friend when she got engaged last May. My grandmother is 102 years old, but was doing well, all things considered, until about 2 weeks ago. Then her doctor suggested we put her on hospice because she likely had 6 months or less to live. Immediately after my uncle signed the hospice paperwork, my grandmother had a bad fall and rapidly began to deteriorate. It's highly likely that she won't live more than a few more days. My friend's wedding is in 10 days. Today I called my friend and explained the situation. My grandmother and most of my family are in Colorado. The wedding is in Florida. Technically, I could fly to Colorado to see my family, possibly see my grandmother if she's still alive, and then go to Florida for the wedding. However, I know I will be extremely emotional and upset, and honestly, I just want to be with my family. My friend is the only person I know at her wedding, and I know it would be impossible for me to act happy and excited for her. My grandmother is truly one of the most important people in my life, and knowing she is dying is incredibly painful. So I told my friend that while it is an impossible choice, I do not feel like I can be in the wedding now. I knew my friend would not be thrilled, but she told me that she's deeply hurt by my decision. Obviously, it was a difficult decision to make, and maybe I made the wrong decision, but I also feel like there is no way I would be able to be anything resembling a good bridesmaid at this point. Obviously, 10 days before the wedding is not a good time to have to cancel, but in my mind, this is an emergency situation, and I've apologized multiple times to my friend. I'm just afraid that she will never get past feeling hurt, and that I'll have lost both my grandmother and my friend. Look, I know weddings are a huge moment for a lot of people, and not giving a lot of notice for a major change to the wedding party, that's a fairly big deal. That is not something that you do lightly at all. Dresses are measured and bought usually many, many months ahead of time. This isn't something that you can just, quick fix it up or whatever. That being said, the impending death of a very close relative is absolutely an okay excuse. It is such an okay excuse that I am kind of angry that your friend would be like, oh, I'm deeply hurt by your decision. No! A good friend hears that and goes, oh my God, don't worry. We can make the wedding work. Please be with your family and keep me up to date. That's what a friend does. I don't give a crap about your wedding if, I've already lost my grandparents. My grandma, on my stepmom's side was the last one to go. Very, very close to her, all that. I love her dearly. And if I was supposed to be in a wedding and I told someone I need to go be with my grandma and they were like, it really hurts me that you make that decision, that'd be like, oh wow, I feel less bad about this because I don't want to be your friend anymore. How dare you? Your wedding is not more important than the passing of a beloved relative. Get out. Oh my gosh, I'm just... No. You respect people's weddings to a pretty good degree, but there is a line, and that bride has crossed it. Story 4. Today I effed up by ignoring my car's maintenance. I, 20 male, am a beginner at driving. It's been 6 months since I started learning to drive. I only know how to drive and nothing about the working, the dashboard signs and warnings, the subtle changes the car goes through during a drive. My car used to make a certain rattling noise when the accelerator was engaged. This was a persistent problem, so I went as far as posting it on a sub to find a possible problem and its corresponding solution. Many people advised me that it might be an alternator belt issue. I promised myself to get it fixed as soon as possible. As I don't use my car that frequently, and to be honest, I'm a bit stingy when it comes to apparent minor problems related to almost anything like my car, my bike, even my own health, and then lo and behold, this rattling noise goes away on its own. I cannot contain my happiness, as it would save me a couple of bucks. Skipping forward to maybe a month or two, I saw a missing belt after I popped open the hood. I tried to ignore it and pretend that it was never there. I forgot about it entirely. My car runs smoothly without any issues. Skipping again to 2 days, now the real F-up begins. Cousins getting married. Me and my sister decide to pay her a visit and check up on the preparations. Obviously my car enthusiastic butt, I want to drive the moment I get a chance. It's evening, both me and my sis get in the car. The car is functioning pretty smooth, by the way. Almost reached the destination, and to no surprise, it breaks down, thankfully, on the section that's open between the barricades or dividers for a U-turn. Crap. Never experienced a car breakdown. Thankfully, there was a garage nearby, and the issue was solved temporarily by charging the battery. As you all might have guessed, it was caused by the missing belt that charges the car battery. Was that enough effed up? I asked God, and the reply came a little bit late. We will see why. The garage didn't have the alternator belt, so the mechanic asked me to visit a nearby garage that was almost 15 kilometers away. So without any option, I had to get it fixed. I told my sis to visit our cousin, and I'll get the car fixed in the meantime. It got dark real quick. With a barely charged battery, I started my journey, used Google Maps to find that different garage. Google Maps doesn't provide the best route, to be honest, and to find a safe route on the majestic Indian roads is no easy job even for veterans. Maps tell me to take the big flyover and then turn back to the exit. My dumb butt didn't realize that the headlights were dimming as I was driving. Headlights go off. I'm driving on the oblivion 8-laned highway without lights. The highway is under construction and the barricades aren't set up. There's a big gap in place of the barricades, and it's a few centimeters deep, almost 20 centimeters deep. My dumb butt keeps driving. Pitch darkness. No streetlights, no lamps, no headlights, no lanes marked on the highway, none of those sparkling pods that help you keep you centered on the road. Bam. I slid 2 tires on the pit that's 20 centimeters deep that's in the place of the barricades. Sit. Actually experienced my first car accident. I somehow managed not to roll over, and I don't know how, but I even managed to get back on the road. Screeching noise caused by the car's bottom grinding against the concrete echoes through my ears. Crap times 100. Really effed up. Stranded in the middle of the highway exactly on the overtaking lane. Car's battery was low, so the emergency lights were working on dim. It was past 9, so the highways are ruled by trucks and lorries. No apparent car visible. I got out. Tried calling the car battery guy that charged the battery previously. Phone switched off, or that's what the AI lady said. Panic ensues. What should I do? ×3. Tried calling the new garage that was recommended by the battery guy. Man picks up telling me that he'll be there shortly. I wait. Streams and streams of trucks and lorries pass by. Some of them almost reached me. Sweats. As it was pitch black, I tried signaling with my phone's flashlight. 45 minutes passed by. Me continuously signaling the truck away that could possibly kill me in any moment if I were careless. Mechanic arrives and installs a new belt. I was charged extra for a VIP on-road service with phone's flashlight in pitch darkness where trucks passed by that could potentially hit us. I realized a big lesson today. Don't be like me. Get your car fixed if it needs to be. Even a minor problem can cause an F-up. Didn't realize that it almost feels like it doesn't happen while I'm typing this. Maybe I'm still shocked by the screeching noise. Anyway, that's all what happened, and I think it was a nice experience that scared the living crap out of me, but it will possibly make me a better driver that not only knows how to drive, but also knows when my car needs maintenance. Thanks for reading. Seriously, folks, if you're learning how to drive, learn the basics of car maintenance. Learn what the different lights on your dashboard mean. Learn how to change oil and some belts if you can. Like, there are limits, and obviously, you know, not everyone's going to want to do that stuff, but it's just good to know some of those basics because you are driving a complex machine, a machine that's getting more complex as time goes on with computers and stuff. So it's good to know when something is an issue that you need to have checked out right away and when something is just a dumb noise that you can kind of ignore. But seriously, it's really important to take that extra step. I know you're excited. Hey, I know how to signal and drive and all this other stuff. I can move places. But you're doing so on something that if you don't get it fixed right away can cost you so much money in the long run. Cars are such a pain, so just learn a little bit for your own sake. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for asking my in-laws to pay if they want to see my kids? My husband passed away when our kids were 1 and 4. It was obviously a really tough time, and my in-laws were amazing. They took care of me as much as they did the kids. His sisters made us meals, and their husbands helped with the yard and housework. I once called my father-in-law to come get us from the grocery store because I basically had a breakdown when some lady was rude. He came in with my mother-in-law so they could take care of the kids and get me in my car home. After I put myself back together about 8 months later, they were still there for me. They would help with the kids while I worked. When I went back to school, they supported us. After I graduated, the best job I could get was a fair distance away, but it was in a city where I have family. We talked and prayed about it, and they said that they understood why I needed a plan for our future. The problem is that they always want to see the kids, which is great. They're wonderful people, and my kids and I love them. However, I'm starting my career kind of late in life. I cannot afford to take a week off of work to take the kids a couple states over, or to fly there for a weekend visit, and the kids are too young to travel by themselves. The kids and I spent Thanksgiving with my mom and dad, so we spent Christmas with my in-laws. It's only been a month, and now they want the kids and I to come back for my mother-in-law's birthday, and they want us to come to the lake this summer, and a bunch of other things. I am not going to be able to save any money if this keeps on. I finally spoke with them and was clear that if I wanted them to be a huge part of my children's lives, but if they wanted to see me that much, they needed to contribute money. For example, I said that they could have the kids for 2 weeks this summer, but they would have to either pick them up or drop them off. I would do the other, and that they would come to my city to visit instead of always expecting me to drive there. I sold my old house and purchased a house with an in-law suite so they could stay with us. They have never used it. I know that they're close-knit and all live in the same city, but it is too big a commitment for me to be the only one responsible for them seeing the kids. They are upset that I'm being this way, and one of my sister-in-laws called me to tell that her family was disappointed that I was being this way after all they did for us. I feel bad, but I'm just not able to do everything they want without them helping financially. Okay, at first I was a little perplexed because I thought you were just like, you want me to come visit? Well, then you're going to have to pay my daily wage at work for me to take the vacation and stuff. Blah, blah, blah. No, you're asking them to sometimes be the ones to come visit you or to pick up the kids for trips like that. That's not an unreasonable ask. In fact, that's something that I've experienced and seen with most families. Like, folks in the comments, I'm not wrong here, am I? Like, seriously, I've had things like this with my family where it's like, no, we don't always travel to you. Sometimes you travel up to us or we meet at a place or something like that. Like, the burden of like travel and those expenses can't always be on one person, and you do not get to use the excuse, well, after everything we did for you. Like, no. Like, the husband died, you were helping out, and that's wonderful, but that does not mean, oh, and for the rest of your life, now you're responsible for always traveling to us. Like, absolutely not. I'm sorry, they're being unreasonable. They can come and see you if they want to see the grandkids. Why is that an issue? Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.